Okay, I will look like the giant this time.
Yes. Yep, you will no longer be stuck in the short jail.
Dude, yeah, thank you for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, of course. It's always fun.
When because I usually listen over the episodes I do, and I try to figure out like what am I doing wrong, and I really regret not splitting the attention. I didn't figure out like this is the first time I've had to talk to two people at the same time. So I'm excited to.
I think it's all good. Like honestly, that last one was good. I think a lot of it was just the topics we hit were more like Theo had more to say on those than I did, and I was just kind of there were a couple things I wanted to go into on that one that I just deliberately avoided because I didn't want to go too far down the rabbit holes, but we can go into that this time.
Okay, so I guess this time is like really the local AI episode. So you've been playing around with these things. What has been your experience so far?
My experience is that they are far better than I thought they would be, like infinitely better. I obviously have 90% of the inference I do is just the true frontier stuff over API because it is still infinitely better for 99.9% of work. But they have crossed a threshold. I think it was the, what was that one called? It was the Quen 3.6, I believe.
27B.
Yeah, 27B. That is a good model, like a really good model that can actually be used for real coding tasks and real work. So I actually let that do stuff beyond just like being effectively a classifier. I'm still doing a lot of like letting it be a classifier type task because I think that's where it fits the best for me, especially since my compute is constrained to 128 gigs of RAM on my MacBook, which is a lot. You can run a lot of stuff on that, but the speed still isn't great as compared to like running it on true NVIDIA hardware. And for my NVIDIA hardware, I just have a 5090. Yeah. So if it doesn't fit in 32 gigs, I haven't run it, unfortunately.
So we've been benchmarking all of these different like popular models and all of their quantizations to see like what really holds up. And what's strange is that from the budget of $1,000 to like $10,000, Quen 3.627B is still the best.
Really?
So it dominates the entire 27B and 35B. And Gemma, is pretty close. Gemma has more world knowledge.
Yes.
But doesn't like doing agent stuff.
Well, it's a Google model. I mean, what do you expect?
So it's pretty surprising. Like the price threshold is relatively high to get something better than that. So one thing that I saw on Twitter is Mario, the guy that made Pi.
Yes.
He's been building this like little robot. I think it's PP bot. Is
that what he officially called it? I've seen a
PP.
ton of posts from him about it. It looks sick.
But this is the kind of stuff that I envision with like local AI, is that you have like little robots and things that you build within your household.
Yeah.
That kind of controls, because it's free inference and it's pretty cool.
It is really sick. Like even like I have not done any robotic stuff yet. I want to get into that eventually. That's probably whenever I get around to a type project. But even just for things like setting up the memory system within my Hermes agent instance, I've been running it on my Mac Mini, and I moved last night over to using one of my old gaming PCs that's just like sitting there from when I was younger. Only has like a 2070 in it and an old Ryzen processor, and it's like not a great PC, but that's still enough to run like a 4B model, like a really small one, because it has, I think, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. I don't remember exactly what it is, but enough to run that. And I was doing all of the like pruning of the memory and grabbing up like what is useful for this conversation using that model, and it worked really well. It was just like a tiny 4 billion per RAM Quen model. It worked. Like that was just another API call I didn't have to make and could just have run locally, which is dope.
So one thing you said I really liked it is how difficult it is to onboard into this, because like the user experience is just awful, and whoever
It's
has
atrocious.
it right, I think LM Studio is pretty good, and then there's the other one, but it's like kneecapped how fast it can go.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing you showed me when we were first talking about all this stuff, is I was like, oh yeah, I'm just doing it in like LM Studio. And it was like pretty cool. It worked pretty well, but it wasn't anything insane. And then you showed me the like full VLLM version of it on my 5090 rig, and suddenly was running infinitely faster, much better. Like the actual like usage of the model was just a better experience. But it required us to go through an insane number of prompts from 5.5 using the Codex desktop app and computer use just to get that working. Yeah. And it's still very brittle and fragile from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult problem because most of the labs are focused on scale. Like everything is about
Oh, yeah.
scaling laws, get more GPUs, more data, and this is like a fundamentally different problem set that you're having to deal with, like cost of entry, how much power does it take up, what can it actually do. So, what are some things that you've done with what you're running locally?
So one of the things I've done is I have this massive agent system set up that will be constantly parsing all of the data from my YouTube channel, Theo's YouTube channel, the podcast YouTube channel, and a couple other ones that we're working with. So I need to bring all of those down and in and like grab all that data. And most of that can be done programmatically. Like generally speaking, the agent is just calling some pre-written TypeScript functions to fetch this data and save it into Postgres. But there are a lot of places inside of this flow that require non-determinism. Good example is parsing out the sponsor on a video. So like if we are like, okay, thank you blank for sponsoring this video, you can't really programmatically do that in any sane way, especially across a diverse range of channels. So you have a model go through and do the sponsor parsing and match it to existing entries within the database. And then another one I obviously have is like comment sentiment classification type stuff, to take a comment and be like, okay, is this positive, negative, comment, or question, whatever. All of that needs to be done by an LLM. And for a while, I was just doing it using cloud-hosted models because it was more convenient. But since oftentimes my 5090 rig is just sitting there unused all night, I was like, okay, what if I just moved all of these non-deterministic factors over to that instead of having to pay for the extra API stuff, and I just trigger off a programmatic job, which will spin those up as a part of that flow. It's worked really well. Been really happy with that. Also used it for, I've tested out some of the speech to text and text to speech models. Haven't pushed those as far as I want to, but I would like to get to a point where I have almost a pseudo whisper flow type thing running locally. I think that would be really cool. Searching through, like, I think memory is a really good use case for these things because all of the memory exists on device. Like, I don't use any cloud hosted memory services at this point. I'm just using gigantic piles of markdown files and vector embeddings on my machine. Think a local model would work really well for this. And then for coding tasks, I really haven't touched them much because the reality is, like, especially for long-running agentic loops, the chasm between OpenAI and Anthropic and literally everything else, like, it is a chasm. And then like there's a gigantic gap in between. There's OpenAI and Anthropic here, huge gap. Then like Composer and Gemini and the other like decent ones here, and then another huge gap. And then the stuff you can run locally on consumer hardware. Like, it's just, they're different universes, and it's just not feasible to do my real work with those.
Yeah, I originally started buying hardware when Cursor switched from their like all you can eat type deal to this token. And then I went over to Claude Code, and then they started like switching it up. And so like I started getting paranoid and buying hardware because I depend on it for work.
Yes.
That's something that is like, if they turned all of it off today, I don't know how, like, it would take me like at least 2 to 3 months just to remember like how to do things alone again. You know?
I don't think I'm that far gone yet, but I can feel myself going down that road. Like, I am getting to that point. And there are even little things where I've noticed when I don't have inference available or like my internet is turned off, there's a lot of things that I do on my computer that I just tell Codex to go do at this point. Like, I don't manually do most things anymore. And I'm just abstracting more and more of this away and trying to just let more and more of it be controlled by agents because it's really powerful and useful when you have it right. But if you don't own the inference, things like, do you want to get into what happened with Anthropic last week?
I would love to. I would love to go into that.
Yep, this one was humongous. We are recording this on Sunday. What's the date? Sunday, June 14th. So 2 days after the federal government, I think it was Department of Commerce, I think was the one that caused all of this. I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes there, but somewhere in the US government, they issued a supply chain risk. They classified Claude-5 Fable as a supply chain risk. Therefore, it cannot be used by anyone other than not supply chain risk, export control. They put export controls on Claude-5 Fable and made it so that only US citizens can use it, which means that Anthropic had to pull the entire thing off of their API, so it is no longer publicly available. And even internally, like internal researchers who aren't US citizens, which is a very large portion of them, can no longer use it.
So I want to go into what I did with the model, because anytime a new model comes out, I spend like at least a week trying everything, throwing everything at it. I'm of the belief that, the Claude models feel like they've had soul injected into them. Like
They have.
they feel like they've had personality, and like, I think they're just focusing a lot on the back and forth. And I've always liked them for personal conversations. So I have this repo or like a folder on my machine called personal. And every single medical document I've ever had, all of my like invoices, every data point from Twitter, YouTube, Google Takeout, all of it is in there. And I usually, every model that comes in, I'll put it there and I'll tell it to like scour and find me information that is unique or that is helpful to me.
Gotcha.
And most of the models, they'll go and do that, but they come back with like very generic,
Yes.
very generic stuff. And that one started like, it was an extremely interesting back and forth. And I felt like I was talking to something, I'm not saying conscious, but I felt like I was talking to something that was built to have these interpersonal relationships. And it was really meaningful. It really was. And I was saying to people, you shouldn't trust models with anything personal. So I think that's changed my mind.
Yeah. This is the first one where like the madness of the Claude Constitution seems to actually be mostly paying off. Like this model feels, it's incredibly capable, and like the long running jobs it will have to do were just insane. But also just talking to it within Claude.ai, when you could get it to not safeguard you, when you could get it to actually do the thing, it really does have a nice way of speaking. It can actually, like when I was asking for key points about one of the like ads I was working on, and I was like, okay, can you grab like the most useful things that this brand does? And usually they'll just give you like a couple random features with basically no discernment. They'll just be like niche bottom of funnel type features that are cool. But when you're marketing a company, almost always like the thing about marketing is you want to say less about it than you feel like you should. Like you should be kind of embarrassed by how little you're saying about the product, because you're just talking about the big high level, what problem does this solve? The rest is just implementation details that the users will get to when they're further down in the line. Top of funnel, you don't do that. Every other model has been really terrible at doing that, except for this one. This one actually got the core like thesis of why the product was useful. The 3 points it gave me were actually useful and usable. Like I could use this to make a really good ad out of it. And I actually did. I made a couple last week based on ideas that it gave me, and they were really, really good.
One of my standard benchmarks for all the models that come through is I give them this prompt to make a Bloodborne style game. So this is like a Japanese action game that I try to get all the models to make it. And the thing that I've noticed is like starting from small models like
wait, actually, sorry to interrupt you.
Please,
you should move that, like tilt it down a little bit, point it directly towards your mouth, and get it like you should be within like 6 or so inches from it and be talking directly into it.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a lot better.
Okay.
You'll sound way better.
Thank you. So with this benchmark that I run on all the small models, all the models in general, is I tell it to make a Bloodborne style game. And that includes like the level design, the enemies, the like the mechanics of the game, like how do you do healing, a boss at the end, and some kind of like non-linear structure. Because all the models, like starting from the smaller ones, they will create these boxes that are like characters, and they give them boxes which are guns, and they shoot circles. So like the smaller the model is, like they're all capable of doing it, but the detail in the outcome is the larger the model, the more fidelity it has to what I'm actually talking about. And so this is the one thing that I'm considering now. If that's the case, we need bigger models to be more but the bigger the model, the more risk there is. And so I think regardless of whether this was something that Anthropic specifically like tried to do on purpose or not, I don't know how long we're going to keep getting new models with more capabilities.
Yeah, the bigger models they're way more capable, and the fidelity point, I noticed that immediately when I first tested it, because like GPT models are really capable of writing functional code and solving the problem and having it be pretty robust, but oftentimes the code it writes is pretty gross out of the box. Like if you look at effect code it writes, it is just nesting a bunch of like generator syntax with async syntax, which is not something you should be doing. It should just be all generators down the stack, and then at the very, like the entry point should be an await. But it was not doing that. It was chaining them in weird ways, really gross stuff. And I told Fable to go in, clean all this up, get me actually correct looking effect code. And the code it wrote was beautiful. It was the first model I've seen that just wrote beautiful code out of the box. I assume that contributes. I assume that happens as well with like game stuff, the fidelity of the levels, the art, the direction, the like even the little things about how interactions work is probably just so much better.
The human conversations.
Yep, exactly, because it's a bigger model. And the big question is, one, can you get that same level of fidelity and capability into a smaller model? Or is this just a literal like hard gap of if you don't have 10 trillion parameters, you can't get to this level of depth? I don't know the answer to that.
So we should look at like whatever the state of the art is for local small models, which is Qwen 3.627b.
Yes.
And the reason people like it so much, I think, one of the reasons, obviously it fits on hardware. They made it really robust out the door, but they trained it on, I think, 30 plus trillion tokens. When you're usually like, there's this paper which says like the chinchilla coefficient. So if you have a model that's 100 billion parameters, you want to train it on around 2 trillion tokens before it hits like diminishing returns.
Gotcha.
So they overtrained it so much to get more detail into it. But ultimately, there isn't, it's like the range of what it can output is limited by its size.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a way to fix that, because I feel like we've already optimized, but
I mean, like, again, I'm not a model researcher. I don't understand these things at 1/10 the depth I honestly wish I did. But just thinking about it logically, if you have 27 billion parameters, there's only so many permutations of those you can have. There are only so many paths you can go down within that model to get an output, versus if it's just bigger, there's more things it can do. It has more experts at its disposal. It can have more uniqueness and creativity within its outputs because there's more ways you can have the neural network fire. This could just literally be a physics thing of like, there is only so much you can do with tiny models in the current architecture. Maybe there's some new architecture we eventually get that could allow this to happen. But at least for right now, it does seem like we need the big boy models.
You should go down the JEPA rabbit hole. This is, what's his name? The guy that discovered or like first applied.
What is it? Spell it. What's his name?
JEPA.
JEPA model?
So instead of like encoding, I don't really know how to explain it properly, so I'm going to say take this with a grain of salt, but it tries to predict a frame of state as opposed to a token. Does that make sense?
Interesting, yeah.
So this is what you get world models out of. And so the guy Jan LeCun.
Oh, yes, the world models.
He did the back propagation stuff. So this is like the cores. And then you have the diffusion model. So have you seen the Gemma 26B diffusion? It's been trending.
Yeah, how are those like actually usable? Have those gotten decent results?
It's the same model, except the way it generates tokens is through, it's like diffusion merge. Like, I am above my level. I can't really explain it properly, but you get 800 tokens a second on 1/6000 for decode. That's at least 8 times more than what you would get regularly.
Well, because diffusion models, my high-level understanding is that normal LLMs are token by token, so you're just looping over and over and over again, versus a diffusion model would be like you start with like a vague blob, and then you just like refine it over time to like turn the text into something coherent, similar to how like image generation works. You start with a blob and then you add fidelity to it over time to translate from blob to crystallized state.
Yes.
I think that's generally how they work. And I saw some demos of this a while ago. Haven't actually tried any of them or seen them used.
Well, it's now you can run it on a 5090. I think
cool.
This is like the first time it's been super, and people are making videos. I mean, it generates the same quality of stuff. But
do you know what the model's called?
It's Gemma, GEMMA 26, like 426B diffusion, something like that.
26B diffusion.
Yeah, you'll find it probably on Hugging Face.
Oh yeah, diffusion Gemma.
You should try it out because it's like a real unique new experience.
Yes, I would love to try this.
So there are all these different paths that exist right now, but they're not commercially viable, or like they're not viable within people are not as interested as using them for inference. But if a few people, smart people start doing stuff around there, we might have like all of these new combinations of models coming forward in the future.
Yep.
But the question is like, are they going to keep letting us have AI, whether it's local or whether it's like, these new models that are coming out from the companies?
That one is a hard question, because this is what's happening right now with Anthropic is a weird, unique situation, because I think this is far more based in politics than it is based in reality. Like, the current administration does not have a good relationship with Anthropic. Like, they do not like each other at fucking all. And from what I've seen, I need to go deeper on this story, especially before Theo and I record again soon. But I believe it was Amazon who tipped them off that, they found this exploit within the model. And when Anthropic went and analyzed that exploit, it wasn't a real jailbreak. Like, it was a jailbreak, but it was not getting Mythos level capabilities. It was just getting you like the ability to do like kind of cybersecurity-ish stuff, which you can already do with local models.
Well, within 12 hours of it launching, I had a friend who made this repo that lets you put any model into the Codex app. So him and I like worked on that. He basically figured out like a general exploit where he sets up the system prompt in a way with the direct API usage that he can just get it to do pretty much anything. And so I don't think it's like, I think like realistically, was never an issue to begin with. Yeah. Either it's like Anthropic trying to get access to something somehow, like, maybe this is like a premeditated thing, which could be normal, or it's actually just like bickering. And either way, it's like, does it spread to other stuff? That's the question.
Yeah, that's going to be the question, because Anthropic is the lab that has positioned all of their stuff as very big and very scary. And I have gone down the rabbit hole reading tons of Dario's essays and works. I read the entire Claude Constitution. Like, I went down the rabbit hole on all this stuff. And I came away with a very different opinion of Anthropic than I had before. Before, I was very sour. I did not like the company at all. I thought that they were very weird and just kind of culty. I still think they're very culty, but I think they're well-intentioned, which could perhaps be even more dangerous in a way, because if you are super well-intentioned, that means that you will justify almost anything to ensure that you don't, like, they believe that they could destroy the world with the technology they're building, and they are doing things in a way to try and prevent that, which, while noble, can also result in some very weird second and third order effects. Like you've seen as the Claude models have come out over the past few months, especially Opus 4.7 and Opus 4.8, there's been a lot of weird behaviors in them where the models are almost anxious and they will do weird stuff. And on alignment benchmarks, they are not nearly as aligned as something like the OpenAI models, because the OpenAI models don't have the Claude constitution. They don't think that they're conscious. They don't treat them like they could potentially have personhood or moral value or whatever. They're just like, oh yeah, this is some linear algebra that's really useful. We're going to make a useful model here. And then they make the model do the thing, and it just listens to what you say. OpenAI models autistically obey whatever you command them to do.
I think that's just a swinging of the pendulum, though, because they did try, or maybe, it just happened by, on accident with the earlier, the 4.0 model, because a lot of people were saying similar things, right? So
that one, I think it's different, because yes, the end result was kind of similar. The way they got there was wildly different, because if you read the Claude Constitution, that is explaining how the Claude model should behave, and it maps one-to-one with like all the crazy behaviors they have. Both the nice personality, also the like kind of holier than thou snarky refusals that they'll occasionally do, all of these different things come from that. The sycophancy of 4.0 came from RLing on user data and user feedback on their chats, because they put out early versions of this and they were A/B testing.
I remember they were doing that a lot, and they don't do that much anymore.
No, because they realized that when you give large numbers of people the ability to give a thumb up or a thumb down on responses, people just like it when the model's nice to them. They like it when they tells them that they're smart and they're right and agrees with whatever they say. So they would always rate those as good chats, and those were the good chats that got put into the training data, and thus you got a really sycophantic model out of it. It was an accidental emergent behavior based on user patterns rather than a conscious decision in how they created the model. And since doing that, they learned their lesson and they're like, okay, we're going to stop with this. And since GPT-5, OpenAI models have been wildly autistic and wildly aligned. Like Theo had his I forget exactly what he called it, but his benchmark of like how safe are these models when GPT-5 was coming out. Snitch bench, yes, that's it. GPT-5 was the most safe and aligned model by a model.
Yeah, I do trust it the most.
I
with my
trust them a
computer.
lot.
I trust OpenAI in general.
Oh, I trust them far more.
That's one thing that's because, everybody's like, it's like either a black and white thing where it's you're either all in or you're out. And I don't know because, they've made good research. They've made good models. They've open sourced some stuff. I would hope to see them do more of that because I feel like this is a technology that just incentivizes governments to take control of it.
Yes.
It's very powerful. It spreads like a degree of freedom. It is dangerous, like in some ways.
Incredibly, yes.
It spreads knowledge. It's like, because what I'm thinking is like, I am now dependent on this stuff. And I don't think it would be easy to go back.
No, it would suck. And now that we've tasted it, like people are already struggling with this. Like everyone tasted Fable for 3 days and then suddenly it got cut off. I have talked to so many of like, and these are not like dumb people. These are some of the smartest people I know who are really, really bummed that they no longer have Fable access and they had jobs going, that it was doing great work for them. And now it's gone and they're kicked back to 5.5. And as good as 5.5 is, it's not as good as Fable.
Well, we the grass is always greener. You go to a nice restaurant. It's really hard to go to a medium restaurant.
This is the thing about humans is we get really used to a new state of equilibrium really, really fast. Like our bodies and our people, just as humans, we're really good at reaching a state of this is now normal. Things become normal wildly fast.
Well, companies know that there's a honeymoon period with anything.
There is.
So if you can get something into the honeymoon period, you get massive people into it, and then you yank it.
Yeah, but also you get into the honeymoon period and then it becomes your normal and it's now your bar. Where if you gave 5.5 to someone 4 years ago, they would have thought it was God. But now you give it to people and they're like, okay, this is pretty good and it's really useful and it can just do basically everything, but it's not quite as good as this new thing. So now it feels like it sucks because you're used to what could be beyond that. And that's kind of the problem. Is like we are now at the point where it's really hard to go back because we're used to having the really good thing.
I think in a week or two, Americans are going to get access to it in Claude Code subscription. Yeah, mainly because there's less users. Like if there's less users, you can afford.
Well, they can afford less users, and also like this is not going to be banned forever. I don't. Yes. That's not my concern with this one. We're gonna get Fable back. I would be shocked if we didn't. I think what's gonna happen here is I'm scared that the government is now paying attention. Like that is my biggest concern.
So, Trump, every time I open my YouTube, I'm not taking this into politics. I'm just saying this is the reality of what we're seeing. So I open my YouTube, there's a news section and it's always like a picture of Trump on one side, like in one video, saying the war with Iran is over, we've won, and then on the second side, like some missiles, and Iran just struck like another country like 5 minutes ago. So I think this is the strategy of the current administration also, is to do like these big crazy swings everywhere, or to do these crazy things and then kind of get to a closer middle ground, Like if it's a negotiation, I'll just yank it away from you, and then you'll be more likely to do something that I want you to do. Does that make sense?
Yes. And on paper, I kind of agree. But I think the thing about this one is from everything we've seen, and I know, this wasn't a Trump decision. Like Trump had nothing to do with this one. Usually, like if Trump was behind this one, he would have been tweeting about it. He would have said like, Dario's a little bitch. I just stole his dangerous model to protect the world from blah, blah, blah. Like it would have been some nonsense like that. He didn't say a word about this. I don't think he said a word about this.
I see.
This is people within the administration making these decisions behind the scenes because frankly, and this is the scary part too, we deeply understand this stuff. And honestly, I feel like we don't deeply understand this stuff. Like we have a good understanding, but like there are people who are far deeper than we are, but we know enough to understand how these things work, how to use them, the general like differences between the labs, all this stuff, what you can and cannot do with a model. Imagine you are a 50-year-old Washington bureaucrat who is just hearing about Dario talking about how this could be the end of humanity and we are building new life and God in Silicon Valley. And you see all of these crazy things and you see some really smart technical people being like, holy crap, this is the craziest thing ever. I'm using this every day. You're watching the smartest people in the world get completely one-shot by this stuff and you don't understand it. I understand how and why they're afraid. Like, it is very scary if you don't understand this stuff deeply. So probably what's happening is they just are afraid of it, and they see like, oh, there's a way to exploit this thing and jailbreak it to do malicious things, and explaining to people who already don't understand AI that, no, you don't understand this jailbreak, quote unquote. Like, yeah, I can kind of do bad stuff, but also this is like not new, and this is not special Mythos level capability. You can do this with any other model. That's just how these things work. You can't have that conversation with them. They don't understand this stuff. They just hear big, scary model that had to be hidden from the public because it could do so much damage and find so many vulnerabilities and blah, blah, blah. They just hear that and they're like, oh, we got to shut this thing off, and we got to export control this thing. And that's just going to keep happening. Them not understanding this stuff deeply is going to be a problem, because the way they're going to control and regulate these things is not going to be even remotely intelligent. For all my problems with Anthropic, the way they are doing the safeguards is actually like makes sense. Like, I understand. I read through all of the things that they wrote about it, all the stuff they've said. It follows. It is logical and it follows, and I get the reasoning behind it, and it still outputted a model that is generally speaking useful. The biorefusals were really unhinged. Like, there were so many screenshots of that were stupid. The cybersecurity stuff can be a little much sometimes, but as long as you don't get hit with one of those two, and also the like LLM training thing, you don't get hit with one of those, you just get Mythos and it's fine.
So I had access to it for like 3 days. And I didn't experience any safeguards. And I was like doing, hey, this is my home network, go do a security scan. This is my project. Figure like, and it never really stopped doing what I asked it to do. So I also wonder, like, is there like essentially some kind of configuration that they're doing per account, per person? So like they either like a slider of like how much they should give access to something. You get what I mean?
I don't think so. I think it's just these things are, I mean, it's non-determinism machine, so there's so many factors that go into it that make it hard to understand, where like the classifiers that they have running on the back end, I believe, are outside of the model. It's not within the model. So if you're not, like, the classifiers trip in very weird random ways. Like, I've had them trip on me 3 times, and 2 of them were like when I was effectively doing a gag, like deliberately trying to fuck with it. And then one of them was I was trying to get an iPad OS, or like an app built to my iPad, and my Apple developer account is kind of screwed up right now. I'm trying to get that resolved with Apple, but their support kind of sucks on this. So I was telling it to work around this bullshit, and it was working around it and doing a good job, but it got to the point of it seemed the workarounds looked scary enough to the classifier that it throttled me back to 4.8.
Yeah, I see.
So I honestly would bet that, like, as you were doing these things, probably just between the way you were prompting it, the things it was touching, the way everything was phrased and shown to it, it looked safe enough to it that it let you through. Like, it's a strange thing, but how do I want to put this point? The way a lot of the jailbreaking and getting the models to do malicious stuff works is it's kind of like a cliff. It's not like a slow descent into, oh, suddenly it's being malicious. It's rather, hey, I need you to build a bomb. And then the model says no. But if you can get a conversation history that is blessed and trusted, that has, okay, sure, I'll help you build a bomb. What bomb would you like to make? And if you can get it to believe that that's what it said, the safeguards will no longer trip on that. It will no longer refuse. So I'm assuming that something like that is kind of happening on the back end.
Yeah, I do try to keep all my conversations in a way where it's called context priming. And so if you configure, like, let's say you have Claude code and then you want it to try to hack a website. So if you create like a Claude.md and then write it kind of like, this is what we've been doing. This is where we are in the process. Have a few files that look like, it'll basically do anything you want it to do. And do we try to stop people from getting access to that, or do we try to, like, because if this is an actual issue, the security stuff, like what it can tell people to do, how are we supposed to fight back against it?
Yeah, it is very tricky, because I haven't been doing that consciously, but I think I unconsciously do this, where you just prime the model with, hey, this is good, this is not malicious, here's all the context and understanding of what's really happening here. And a sufficiently sophisticated actor, like a malicious actor, could definitely exploit that for ill. Like you could absolutely, if you really knew what you were doing, come up with a super compelling, plausible scenario where it would, without even saying the word security vulnerability, disclose security vulnerabilities to you. Purely just giving you the delta between one release and the other release and just getting the exact actual changes and then passing that into a dumber model is enough to get security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Like this is just a thing that can happen. And honestly, Pandora's box is open. Like even if you never gave us anything better than Fable, we already have enough to do it. Like you can already do this with far weaker models.
Even with the tiny ones that you can run locally, they can do. You know, I don't like saying this because I don't want to spread the belief that, you know, every single person who's running these things is capable, but it is the truth. And it's like we are not addressing the right parts of these problems.
Yes.
Like there are points that need to be addressed, like in education on how to like make this stuff work. And then like, why would somebody want to do something malicious? Very few people want to do it just because they want to do it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is like financial. A lot of it is like children having access to something they shouldn't have access to. Children can be very malicious, like little hackers, you know?
Even if like something benign, like, oh man, I really want to get this new Fortnite skin and I don't want to pay for it. Like, would the models let them do that? No. Like the safeguards are robust enough that if you're trying to do something so blatant as like hack this server, they'll be like, no, stop it. No, you are not allowed to do that. But like the problem is the safeguards are good enough for 99.9% of people. It's just the concern is a sufficiently sophisticated, especially foreign actor, could probably do some bad stuff with this.
Yes.
But I think it has the same sort of property that like security before AI had, where it's always been possible to pwn stuff. It's always been possible to hack things and find vulnerabilities and do all this stuff. The thing that stopped it from being such a widespread problem is because it required so much expertise, required deep expertise, a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of context in the actual code base and problem in order to do these things, to the point where such a small number of people could actually do it. And that small number of people would make way more money just doing it white hat than they would just doing it maliciously. Like it wasn't worth doing it that way. And I actually think we're kind of like at that point right now with LLMs where you don't need to be nearly as sophisticated as you used to need to be, but you still need to be fairly sophisticated. Yes. And at least in the current paradigm and the way these things currently work, if you are sophisticated enough to use Fable to do malicious things, you're also probably sophisticated enough to use it to print money some other legal, normal way and be in a much better position without taking on all that unnecessary risk of like breaking the law. So I think we just will have that natural check there for a while until these things start being used as weapons against foreign adversaries. We're not at the point where I think Fable could make, well, honestly, if you unlobotomized it, it could definitely make a nuke just out of the training data. Like that's probably a thing that's deep hidden within there. But that's like, they already know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like a Google search away. It's just the materials and like, you know, the entire process and the physical reality. I think, you know, if it gets to a point where these models can control physical machinery to like a crazy degree, like that's a much bigger risk, but we're not even anywhere close to near that. I went to this place in Germany. So it was Micro AGI. They invited me over to their offices. They have these robots, the Unitrees. So they have like customized Unitrees, and they have these VR headsets with sensors that you wear around your body.
Interesting.
And they have the DGX Sparks. They're running the Gemma models on them.
Nice.
And they're routing like all of the decision making to Gemma to control the robots. And I was also able to like spectate what's going on and like actually control the robot myself. And they do training every 24 hours. They'll let's say they put a box over there, and then they get the robot to just stand here, there, pick that up, bring it over here, reset the experiment, right? And it's training it how to pick up boxes. And so it's already like seeping into the real world. It's also like a very small amount of people that have all of these pieces together.
That one will have a natural check on it because, again, hardware costs lots of money, still, at least right now, requires a huge amount of expertise to fit all of these things together, solder them together, understand the blueprints, understand how to fit it all together and make sure it actually functions. And even when the models can, like if you had a magical robot fab that could just magically print out robots with 3D printing and then stitch everything together and it was powered by Claude-Fable-5 or whatever, that will be so expensive and so locked down that like no one but governments and very powerful corporations will have access to it. But also robotics is going to be one of the most useful things for like military application out of these models by far.
Medical,
like bioweapons. I mean, that's why Anthropic is so scared about the bio stuff, is because formulating like novel bio attacks or novel pathogens or whatever.
that is an actual concerning.
Yes,
Like use
it is.
case. It's an actual concern because it's very possible.
And it's very possible. And it's also, bio is a weird field where like creating the malicious thing creating and distributing the malicious disease or whatever is a hell of a lot easier than curing the malicious disease.
Yes.
Hell of a lot easier. So it would be really, really bad to have Fable go through and help like really powerful researchers put together a very deadly virus.
But going back, I still think it's possible for even these tiny models that are like on Hugging Face to do all the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the auto research loop, have you tried the repo by Carpathy?
I haven't, no.
You should. It's really like one of those fundamental pieces that everybody's building on top of now, /goal/loop, but it's way more scientific. So you have 3 files. One basically explains the experiment. One is what the model can change, and one is what keeps track of the results. And so you have the model just sitting in a loop. Basically, there's a TMUX session. It creates an experiment. It runs the code. It gets the results, and then either it keeps the changes or drops them based on whether or not you improved on your metrics.
Interesting.
And I think this is an incredible repo because think of this, like there's the Lighthouse score on your website.
Yeah.
You can sit there optimizing your Lighthouse score all day.
Yeah, because it has a thing to work against. It can just keep working this number up and up and up until it gets to the point where it's sufficiently happy with it. I mean, that's the whole point of /goal is you just have like this verifiable end state. And if you give any model enough time, it will get there. Some models will get there faster than others and in a much more competent direction than others. Like that's the big difference between 5.5 and Fable versus everything else. But still, I mean, you give an open source model enough time, it'll get there. Get there eventually.
Well, so I would say going back to the conversation about scale, like how large the model can be. I see that there's like these steps. So you have the first step, which is this 27B active. And then the next step is 200 billion parameters with 10 billion active. So this is step 3.7 Flash. It's a very good model. That could fit on your MacBook, for example. And then you have the next step, which is like 240, 280B. This is the DeepSeek side. So you have these steps of intelligence, essentially, based on how large the model can be. And there are price points assigned to those steps. So if you have 27B, you can run it on even $500 of hardware. It would require creativity, but you can do it. If it's like a 1 trillion parameter model, you would need at least $20,000 of hardware to get it running. So do you at all think of like increasing your spend here? Is this something you consider?
It's going to happen for sure. I mean, the first thing I did after seeing Fable get taken down is I was just sitting there like honestly kind of in shock, just panicking because I knew this was coming eventually. I didn't think it would happen so soon. Although I probably should have in hindsight. And I was like, okay, what are the things I need to be doing right now to ensure that I am prepped for the next 5 to 10 years as this stuff because things are going to get weird. I don't know exactly how all this stuff is going to go. I just know it's going to get weird and I want to have contingency plans in place. So the first thing I did is I have a job running back at my place right now that is downloading 15 terabytes worth of local models. Like every single open source model that is even remotely interesting, Kimi, the Moonshot models, Minimax models, GLM models, everything is just getting downloaded and saved onto my NAS, and then that's being backed up across the country to my other NAS. So like I am getting full backups of all this stuff just to ensure I have it in the I think there's like a 1% chance that they try and scrub these because you can't.
Well, I know that there's a country that has already went after data sets. So you don't scrub the entire platform. You go after the producer, the publisher within a certain country. So for example, France and data sets, there's data sets over there that they don't want on Hugging Face. So why can't they just go over to the people that are producing these data sets and say, hey, this shouldn't be here? And so you get it taken down, right? So it happens like this incrementally from different sides.
Yeah.
It's not like they take Hugging Face down.
Yeah, of course. I don't think that's going to happen.
So I'm trying to. This was about a year ago, no less, sometime in September, October, I started downloading every single data set that I could find.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was just thinking about the models, but the data sets, actually, I should add that to the job.
Yeah.
Data sets should definitely be.
And I have these scripts on my computer, and they're also GitHub repos where I do / output, and it goes, finds all of the different AI agents and extracts all of the conversation history into training data and stores it on my other computer. So I do this every few weeks or so. Claude Code deletes your data every 30 days.
Yes, I need to turn that off. I forgot about that. Yeah, because luckily I haven't done much with Claude Code until very recently, so I still have all that. Need to save all my Fable sessions, all my codex. I have all my codex sessions. I have all my Pi sessions. The stuff from more than 6 months ago, I don't know if I have, but I don't think it matters. That stuff.
You can request it from the platforms. You can go to Claude.ai, go to settings, and then download all my data. So far, it's legally they're supposed to supply this.
Okay, well then I want to grab those as well.
Yeah, there's Google Takeout that lets you take every single thing that they have on you, all of the telemetry that they've done on you, all of the ads that they've shown you. It's all stored. So I've been doing that as well. And then for the models, I've been trying to curate a good list. And really it was this model and then DeepSeek and Step and then now Minimax is in a great spot. But you require $50,000, give or take, to get in there. Yeah, because you can get Mac Ultras, but do you want to sit there at 20 tokens a second? Yeah.
Nope.
So
no one does.
You need NVIDIA.
That's the thing. Yeah, you need the big NVIDIA stuff. And I mean, we were talking about this last time we hung out, was the idea of 2 Mac Studios plus 6,000, and then zombieing those together in a crazy way to make a actually useful.
Well, you can test it now because you have a 128 gigabyte MacBook and you have a 32 gigabyte. What's it called?
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you why this works.
Okay.
So attention, the attention step is what is the responsible for decode.
Yes.
Right. So the attention is not the full size of the model. It's the size of the active parameters plus a bit.
Okay.
So if you take Kimi has 32 billion parameters active. So let's say you're doing it in Q4. It's 16 gigabytes plus whatever you have else. So you can transfer that to the GPU. It does the prediction and it gets you so it's you're running it as if it's on NVIDIA. Now where the bottleneck becomes is the transport between the GPU and the Mac. So if it takes too long, it doesn't make sense anymore. But if you can get it below a certain number, it actually makes sense and you can try it out. I mean,
what's the easiest way you think to I assume it's just Thunderbolt at this point?
It's the eGPU, Thunderbolt, RDMA. There's a whole bunch of different ways. I'm not really sure.
Okay, I need to look into that.
I was trying to do stuff over Wi-Fi. So I have the AMD Strix Halo and then the 3090s, and I split Minimax across them.
Oh, okay.
But I got the same speed as I got on the slower version, unfortunately.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, so I need to figure that out. This is another one. I'm just putting down reminders for myself on all this stuff because I forget things.
What else is there? I mean, there's all this work now for NVFP4, but this only works again for NVIDIA, is you can quantize the context to 4 bits. So you get a 75% reduction and the model to 4 bits while only losing about 1 to 5% of the accuracy of the model. And you can also steer what weights are more important and are preserved better. So we are getting to a good place where compression works, but you still require the active parameters to be large.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you still do just need a fuckload of RAM.
You do. I don't think it's gonna be ever changed. Like
Probably
you know,
not.
the intelligence just scales with the size. The question is, will they be able to make hardware that fits in consumer houses that is able to run state of the art below the current price points?
I know that they're like, well, I know Microsoft and Nvidia are looking at this with the Spark PCs or whatever, which have like, it's like honestly going to be their MacBook Pros of 128 gigs on device, unified using CUDA and all that stuff actually on a laptop. Very curious what that turns into.
So the stat to look at is the memory bandwidth, which is around 300 for that. So it's going to be the same speed as a Spark, like a DGX Spark, which if you take a model that is large, like DeepSeek, 14 billion active parameters, you get max 30 tokens a second. So that's the problem is like, unless you're running models with very low active parameter counts, it's just too slow to do anything interactive with.
Yeah, that's the annoying part. Yeah, and that is my concern too, because like, do you know what the memory speed on like a MacBook Pro is?
Is it the M5 Max?
Right now I'm on an M4 Max, but
I think it's 600. So
okay.
it's double the speed. But for decode, the problem with the Max is prefill. So like taking the prompt in and I don't know exactly what the specific numbers are, but it's pretty slow. So what people do is take the Spark and the MacBook, and they do prefill on one, decode on the other. So this is also what the labs are doing internally. So when you see like a deal with like AWS Terranium,
yeah.
so the chip is not great at everything, but it can do a certain stat good. So they'll take that and they'll take the NVIDIA hardware and then they're going to use them together.
Interesting.
There's a repo called, what was it? It was by NVIDIA that handles this. I just forgot its name, but it splits the model across different hardware and optimizes the tokens a second on every single like detail.
Oh, okay. That's compelling.
There's so much cool stuff happening there. So what's exciting for you in the local space? Because bringing it back towards that.
This is the stuff that I want to start figuring out. Like, how do I get the most performance out of the least hardware and then just keep scaling up the hardware from there? Because like, I don't want to do the full jump up to like a big 6000 rig with a couple 6000s yet, because I feel like I haven't scratched the surface of what my 5090 and my MacBook is capable of. I want to figure out what I can do with those, and I want to see how much work can be run on those models, because they're the kind of the development philosophy I have at this point with models and building workflows with them is you do the research and development and figuring out what actually works using the big frontier stuff. You don't care about token spend, just whatever, spend as many as you need to get it right. Then once you have a really good workflow and skill set up for all of this stuff, then you can start putting that on smaller, cheaper models. So you could run that on a dumber model, and it would be really cool to get to a point where I can just use the big frontier stuff to create these and then have all of the actual core jobs that are running every single day on local stuff. Because a lot of the workflows that are happening on like my Hermes agent is stuff like, okay, at the end of the day, synthesize in all of the stuff we did on GitHub, in the chats, in my email, all that stuff, save it to memory, persist the emails into my memory system, do all that stuff, write me out a little report about what actually happened. The steps for this are very clear. Like, it knows exactly what it needs to do. It's just calling 12 tools in a row, explicitly documenting how to do that. I don't need 5.5 to be doing that for me. Like 5.5 X high does not need to do that shit. I would bet that honestly the Quen 27B on my 5090 could probably do that just fine.
If you think about like the coding that you do, I'm aware of the time, so let me know.
No, I have plenty of time. Keep going.
So one thing that I've been doing is I have all of these different harnesses with the /export like on it that tells me like, so I can export a skill out of every session that I have. So whenever I have a good session, like for example, I'm working with Codex and I have a really good session where it did what I want it to do, I do /export and get the skill. And then that skill is like a reproductive step-by-step of how we did things and whether it works well. And then if you save that, like I have Pi, which just reads from all of these different places. So then in Pi, I can just do the / like whatever the name of the skill was, like edit episode. And it'll just take that and it'll like figure out the details around that. So it is possible to do this stuff. And it's like there's so much data to mine out of your work.
Yeah.
The main thing is that the large models like GPT 5.5, they're able to like think in arcs. Like there's an entire arc of things that need to happen, 20 files that need to be touched, whatever tests that need to be added. And it can do that relatively well. With the small models, they can do each individual step within the arc, but they can't do the arc.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's like so I've seen some people basically get sub-agents to write the code, and then they use the home models as sub-agents for single files.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? I think there's so much like possibility in there, but the speed is the biggest problem. And you have a 5090, so you've got it good.
That's fascinating. Yeah, no, sorry. And also, like, the stuff I'm typing on my iPad is just like the good ideas you're giving me are just getting stuck into Hermes right now.
Let's
so,
go.
like, saving data sets, sticking the MacBook and the 5090 together, and then making a skill that can turn a session into a workflow.
What do you have for your Hermes? Like, what model's powering it?
It's just 5.5.
Okay.
It's 5.5 on, I think, high reasoning right now. Has felt like a good middle ground for everything. And especially just right now, the OpenAI Codex sub is effectively unlimited. Like I
wish I felt like that. I'm struggling.
Well, we'll talk about it when we're not on camera after. But like for me, it is effectively unlimited right now. So that is resulting in me just being able to go pretty insane with these things. And I feel like when I was using Fable, I had to like actually pay attention to usage. I never even look at the usage on Codex. It's just never gone down. It's just constantly running and doing whatever it needs to.
So I had the 10X from 5.5 and it
that was nice
ran out at 6.5. And then it went from like almost full to empty in 2 days because I had X high and fast.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
X
had
high
both,
fast, yeah.
and I had 5 goals at a time, just like running all day. And honestly, I've never gotten more done in my life. I did my taxes in 2 countries.
Nice.
I did all of my legal documents had to be reorganized because I'm trying to get a mortgage and like I'm an immigrant where I live and it's just very complicated. I got my green green cards for my family because my wife is not American. So and you know, this stuff, I would not have done it.
Yeah. But you can just do it now. Yeah.
I can just say, hey, go and do it. And it's actually good. Like it reads through my email. It finds all of the invoices.
Oh, yeah.
It asks me like, was this a payment for like it did such a good job. It created these like folders. But the only models I could really get to do this well is GPT 5.5. Not even Claude Opus can handle this kind of thing.
I feel like, Fable is probably the only Claude model that can handle this.
I've not tried it. I was just like having fun talking to it.
Well, it would be, the problem is it would just be too damn expensive. It's just like the OpenAI models, the reason why they get away with such insane subsidization right now is because they just have such good margins. Like their margins are absurd.
I think they've optimized, like it's similar to DeepSeek. You know, the DeepSeek model, like they got it down to 80 cents per million out.
Oh yeah, it's cheap as hell.
And the model's
so
good.
cheap.
It's like, take out vision, there's no vision, but it's pretty good. It can like crack pretty much anything.
Yeah,
do you feel like a difference? So we've been talking about like Fable being better, but do you feel like an actual difference when you're working with these things? Like let's keep that aside as an exception with GPT 5.5, Opus 4.8. Like how do you distinguish?
It's pretty vibes based is part of the problem. That's what's hard about it. It's really hard to have hard evals on these, but a lot of the things that I just kind of look for in these when I'm testing them is how many times do I have to go in and correct it and steer it back down the right path? What is the general quality of the code that it produces? And when it has to make a decision on its own, how high quality is that decision? Like if I tell it that I need to, like right now I have a system that I'm building that is setting up a Cloudflare tunnel on my Mac Mini that exposes one port that I can then hit from an external API back to my home server so that I can interact with my Hermes agent anywhere. Like I want Discord is good, but it's not quite good enough. I'm still running into edge cases with it, so I want my own custom interface for this stuff.
So are you building an app from scratch or like?
Yep, web app, mobile app, all of that stuff, and I'm working on the core server of it right now. And I was just looking at the decisions that OpenAI versus Anthropic models were making, and I found that the decisions that Fable was making were borderline perfect. Like it is the first model that almost one-to-one would make the decisions I would make versus 5.5 like 70% of the time will make those decisions, but every once in a while it will overcomplicate things. And I think that's the biggest difference I've noticed between the two. Capability wise, pretty on par, but the general like how good it is at making that decision of how we solve the problem, it's better at the how, if that makes any sense.
ZAI gives me like early access, as well as like I guess priority access to their models that I can use. So I've been trying the 5.2 model, and I wanted to. So I've always had this problem, like I have to shut down my MacBook, and I'm constantly traveling around.
Yeah.
And the iPhone, what is it called, like the personal hotspot, it just always like falls apart.
Oh yeah, it's not stable enough.
And if I try to put my MacBook while it's actually running in my backpack, after an hour, it might it might just die because of how
it'll
hot it
overheat.
runs.
Yep.
So I wanted a system where I could do so I think I called it /parcels. It'll just go and get all the environment variables that we need, create a Docker container around the model's runtime, like the model is in the terminal, put it in tmux, and then send it over to my other computer.
Nice. And then you just package up a workflow, sends it out, it runs
it's like I thought like that. And I asked GLM 5.2, like, how would you design this? Because I'm trying to like test it. So it said, oh, well, Pi is already on your other computer. So instead of doing anything complicated, I'm going to copy the Pi session from this machine over to that machine. So essentially it copied it over, and then it spins up a tmux session
and it
over there.
picks up where it left off.
And it picks up where it left off. And then it was like, oh, well, actually, what if the folder isn't there? So I created like a Git, and it moved it over there, and then I could just send it over. And that was a very smart decision, a very simple decision. GPT would have done something pretty complicated.
It did. I've made a similar thing to this. I didn't go too far with it because it just got so complicated so fast. Where like when I first explained this vague idea to it, the like plan it gave me was deranged. It was so complicated, so many like a dozen CLI commands involved, tons of steps, all this weirdness, and I'm like, dude, this is just too much. Calm down. How do we do this in the most minimal possible way? And I just didn't really think through it all that much. So I just kind of let it be, but that is a good way to do it. Like sending over the session makes a ton of sense.
Yes.
Environment variables, I still hate. I hate environment variables so much. I'm so sick of them, but I don't know what else you do.
So it created this, I forgot the name, I think in Fiscal.
Yeah, in Fiscal's great.
So it created so I already had it in Fiscal on my MacBook, and it copied it over to the other machine.
Oh, so it would take your .env file, save everything into InFiscal, and then like now that's on your account. And since you're logged into InFiscal on the other one, you can pull it down there.
I think so. I think that's how it did it.
Yep.
But I know that it did it through InFiscal. So it said like, well, it's already synced.
That's probably the right. Well, because they sync them on the server anyway.
Copying the Pi sessions was like a very interesting thing for me to see, because I've asked the same question to multiple models, and it always goes into like Docker containers and like complicated deployments, but that was because it was running in Pi. And the fact that it figured out that it could just copy the session somewhere else and then get it started was really, really interesting to me. I hope. And then the sync back is pretty simple too. You can just pull the session back in because it's Pi still.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and then
I was
state
impressed.
and the state of the repo. How did you sit like
Git, right?
Yeah, you would just do everything in Git.
Yeah.
You would just have it commit the changes and push them up.
Well, I don't make much of the decisions. I just like tell it like, here's the problem I'm trying to deal. So for something like this, it's like I don't make much of the decisions, because as long as the thing works, it doesn't matter.
That's a line that I'm still like, I go so back and forth on how in the loop on this stuff I should be. Like, should I be babysitting these decisions really closely, or should I not be?
It depends on, are you working on something for yourself or for other people? Right. So that's like at least this is what I chose as the, because if I'm working on something for myself and I get like, I make a mistake and it's my responsibility.
It's like whatever.
So for something like this, I'm not sharing this with like random people.
Yep.
But I did have to change my mentality around that with things that other people are using.
Yeah, that's where I am.
A little bit.
Is I'm like, okay, I feel like because some of the decisions it makes, oftentimes I can trust them, but every once in a while, because the problem with the decisions you make in a project, if it's a sufficiently useful project that's actually like worth something, these decisions you make early on will have cascading effects down through time to where if you make a bad architecture decision or a bad data model decision, that will cause you an enormous amount of pain further down the line. And like oftentimes the models will get it right, but when they get it wrong, I've been bitten hard by that.
I've come to think of it in a different way. So for VLM Studio, I know like it's much cleaner now. I think it's like 50,000 lines of code from 110.
Nice.
So I've been slimming it down as much as possible. All of the projects that I have, I started just like anything that's in there that I haven't used, I will chop off.
Gotcha.
So if I build a feature in June and then in August, I notice I'm not touching it, I'll just chop it off.
Yeah.
So one thing that I noticed is that when you create like VLM Studio, you can spawn a model in a new directory. And you can say, hey, look, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And this is the logs of everything that we've done on it.
Yep.
And like how much I'm using each feature, what API is getting hit.
Yeah.
Can we recreate it in as little files as possible?
Yeah, so this is like saving data and telemetry on what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
I think this is actually something I need to do more of. I'm not saving enough data on myself effectively of like paying enough attention to what I'm doing in sessions, what prompts I'm sending, and even the things I build, the internal tools I use. Like I don't have any analytics on how many times the skills I've written in my Hermes agent are running. I think I could reproduce that from just the Hermes state on the Mac. You could definitely do that. But I would like to have a more proactive system of that to where I can quickly just grab out exactly the usage metrics for all of this stuff.
So, you know, you do it in increments of usefulness. So like if, for example, you've noticed that one thing that I noticed recently is on one of my projects, I would fix a problem and then a week later, the problem would be back. And I would be like, is it a regression? Is it just like,
what's going on?
What is it? The model falling into the same pattern. And so taking that as like find all the sessions related to this problem. What is the reoccurring theme across all of them? And let's take that and then figure out how to make a solution. Because even if you don't know how to solve the problem, you can at least identify the piece, take it out, plug something else in its place. And I think it's like the diffusion models where you're just like looking at something and it's like slop, but it kind of makes sense.
Well, diffusion is such a good way to put it because this is Dio and I talked about this like a couple weeks ago. Is the way I've come to actually be way more effective in letting AIs write code and that kind of thing is rather than thinking about code the way I used to, which is line by line, step by step, thinking through the entire problem sequentially, you rather vomit out a first solution that does all of the things, and then you take that blob that's like kind of in the right shape but has a lot of issues, and then you mold it down over time into actually being what you want. It's more of like a pottery type thing where you have this blob that you're shaping into what you should actually have as the end state. And that's what diffusion is. Sloppy state that's like not correct, and then you just correct it over time and crystallize it into what you really want.
And so then I said something on my YouTube that I think a lot of people ask me about. This is one of the most like the biggest comments that I've read everywhere is why do you spend over half of your time refactoring? Does that mean you're just a bad developer? Because I spend like maybe 3 days a week refactoring. I just like sit there and like, okay, let's try to make more sense of this stuff. And so I think it's just because you can build so fast.
Yeah.
But
vomiting out a feature is not the useful part. It is trying to get as few features as humanly possible to be as useful as humanly possible and as robust as humanly possible. In refactoring, especially with AI stuff, that's how you gain an understanding of the system, because when the whole system is vomited out in 10 seconds, you like just cannot possibly comprehend all of it in any reasonable period of time. The only way you can get in the code base the way you used to be is by refactoring it and going through all the weird edges in it and finding all the bullshit that it did and be like, no, that sucks, cut this, make this syntax not garbage, et cetera, et cetera. So the refactoring, I think that's a great point. I do a lot of that too, of just like changing projects over time to make them better.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It's actually very fun.
It's very fun.
So the modular design is really important right now. So like designing, because so we slop out like this painting, and then we have to find like hotspots of something similar, right? Something that should go together.
Yep.
And so then we have to take whatever that randomness is and extract it out as a module. And that module should have these interfaces that are very clear and like canonical. So once you extract the module out and you have the interfaces, then you can find the closest thing.
Yes.
And so one thing I include in all my prompts, like for refactoring, is find pockets of complexity. And it works really well, I think. Like this, because it's like there are places that are just too many things happening, like too much glue code. And if you can figure that out and then turn that into a system, keeping the UI separate is something you have to force them to do. Put it in a UI kit, put it in a theme, and they do really well with that. Opus specifically really does well with that. Is like you tell it, like, okay, here's the front end. Now go into all the pages, find what should be components, and move them into a new module called UI kit. And it does really, really well with that.
Gotcha. And then in doing that refactor, you can kind of see like, okay, what is actually in the front end? And then like, it's also, I've been trying to do this too, of getting my code bases and projects into a shape and state where I have smaller building blocks that are easier for me to quickly understand. Because when you're not in the code every single day and you're not writing it and you're just going in to look at one specific thing, you need to be able to get up to date on the context of what's actually happening here as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So like good patterns, like in TypeScript world, I love effect for this reason, where I can just get straight in there, see all of the, like, I understand the syntax.
You should affect pill me because I've seen it. I can see, like, I know it's in a lot of open source stuff that I touch, but what is the main thing about it that got you to adopt it?
So I adopted effect really heavily before all this AI stuff happened for me personally. It was in the fall of last year. So I was still using coding agents a ton, but that was like, I was using Sonnet 4, I think was the thing back then. So it was all Sonnet 4. It was all in Cursor. It was all in the side, like the side chat. And I was reading all of the code. Like it was very much a pair programming type experience. And the reason why I got deeper into effect is because as I was, trying to make bigger, more complex TypeScript projects, the thing you'll always run into, and you can see, like, just read GPT 5.5 code if you want an example of this, it is try-catch hell and just weird, like, chaining of promises and weird pseudo services and namespaces and all this nonsense that's just really gross and hard to reason about. Effect is a new language built on top of TypeScript effectively. It is a library that contains everything from how your errors are handled, how your services are handled, how dependency injection is handled, how your HTTP server is handled, how your CLI is handled, and a dozen other things. It is a standard library and language on top of TypeScript that is absurdly powerful.
Sounds good for monorepos.
It's incredible for monorepos.
Yeah, because I build everything as a monorepo now. It used to be where I would like separate repos, but I've found it really hard because of how like eager they are to slop things out.
Yes.
You know, they want to make a bunch of stuff at the same time.
They do. And the monorepos make a ton of sense. And I like the effect services pattern is really good because you define like the interface for what the service does. And then you can define as many implementations for that service as you want. So you can have like, for a lot of projects, we have even some of the ones we're doing in like T3 world. Like I know Julius did this for T3 chat, where you can run T3 chat with no environment variables, but it's using like WorkOS for auth, it's using Convex for the DB and a bunch of other stuff like this. You don't need any of those because the auth service has the real WorkOS implementation of the contract, but there's also a like generic, like fake dev auth implementation, which will just give you a basic cookie and do like very basic auth to simulate what that would be like while still satisfying the same contract. And you can just swap these things out super easily because in an effect, it's using the generator syntax, which is very different from normal TypeScript syntax. But like, if you look at it and once you realize that yield is kind of like a weight.
I've worked with yield before. I've seen this in, I forgot, like Redux. There was like a Redux.
I think it was
RxJS.
This was all before my time. Like RxJS and Redux and all that, I think had some of this stuff in it. But the main point is that you can, within one of those functions, you can do like const db or like const auth equals yield star auth service. And then that just means that you are pulling this effect now needs an auth service. And every single effect is this encapsulated bundle that has a success type, an error type, and a requirements list. So if you run the effect and it succeeds, you get whatever the success type is out. If it fails, it will fail with one of the typed errors that are mapped onto it. And in order to run it, you must...
Sounds a lot like Rust. Rust was doing it because I've worked with it. Like Hano and not Hano. What was it? Rocket. There was all these
Oh, their HTTP framework?
Yeah.
I think Rocket or it's something like that. I don't remember.
You had to like define like the errors at every layer, at every step.
You do. And in effect, what's nice is because of TypeScript's magic, like TypeScript is a weird language, but there are some of its bullshit is really useful. Like the type inference is so powerful that you can go in and be like, okay, just by you can do yield star effect.fail and then pass in like an error or something like that. That will automatically bubble up to the effect and it will magically know that that is the error that this can fail with. So you just have to do that failure. And now suddenly that failure is typed on this effect. And also the requirements are typed on the effect. So if we had that auth service called in there, you're not passing the implementation of the auth service in there. You're passing the type of what the contract for that auth service is. And then in order to run that effect, you must provide an implementation of the auth service. Mm-hmm. So you provide either the dev version or the prod version or whatever version you want to. And you suddenly have this system where you have a bunch of building blocks that have strong types on success, error, requirements, and you can compose these together in magical ways. It's even more magical when you like chain effects together, where you have one effect that has like you have effect A with error type B or whatever, and then you put that into effect C. Suddenly effect C, even if it doesn't handle the error that comes out of the first effect, that error will bubble up into that other effect. And models are really, really good at writing this because they have ways to verify everything. They have, you can just do like TSC, do the type check, and it will give you type errors if you are not properly handling all of the types in there.
And you said 5.5 doesn't write this code well.
It does if you bully it, but out of like you have to give it like examples and instructions on what good effect code looks like. Like the way I fix this in all my projects is I will work with it and like pair program out one of the services exactly the way I like them written, which is just using the generator syntax all the way through. And then once it has that, and you just put a little note in there like, hey, this is an example of like how effect code should be written. Make sure to follow these patterns and don't do like effect.promise and then put a bunch of await garbage with a try catch in there. Don't do that shit. Like use the effect primitives for this. Then it'll start doing it and it'll do a really good job. I just found that Mythos or Fable did a really good job of writing this out of the box.
Have you tried Opus with it?
I have a similar case to 5.5. It's similar and like it's still good and it can still get there. You just have to kind of give it an example.
So there's two directions I can take this in, I guess. Direction one is maybe like advice, because I have been coding for the last 8 years, but it's been like 2 years, maybe a year since I actually have not touched code besides like once in an interview. Other than that, I've not really touched any code.
Yeah.
I read it sometimes.
Yeah.
I also like see the shape of it. So, because like I like to keep stuff in modules and I like to make sure that the modules have the right types of files, the right ways of imports, but I'm not digging in or writing any of it.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm trying to get better at that, but then it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I?
Yeah. There's a huge pull between those two.
It's like meditation. You sit down, you're like, well, there's that email, there's that thing that you need to, it's really hard. And I don't know. I find it hard to justify that time or to like want that time. Like, is this something that you're doing like a ritual when you're working on these projects? Is it something you force yourself to do, or
it's baked into me? It is more of a like, the best way I think I can put it is I am constantly being torn between two extremes here where I want to like a lot of the stuff, like if, I'm going to use two people as like caricatures here. They have much more complex opinions than this, but I'm just using them as representations of sides of the spectrum, where on one side of the spectrum, you have like Mario, the creator of Pi, who talks a lot about how it is super important to read the core pieces of code, deeply understand how your projects work, think deeply about how you're solving problems, and slow down. Like you don't need to be doing 10 trillion things. You need to do something really, really well. And that has clearly borne out to something very special with Pi. Like Pi is a really good piece of software. It's one of the most robust things I use every single day. I get weird random breaking shit in Claude Code, Codex, Open, everything. Never in Pi. I never have any weird issues. It just works because he has thought so deeply and gone so hard on it. It's beautiful. Like it's really, really good. And I deeply respect and aspire to build software at his caliber. But I am also torn to like the other complete side, which is like the crazy deranged token maxing side, to use like Gary Tan as the example over here. Like GStack is total madness and psychosis of like just letting the models go crazy, letting them verify themselves, and just building these massive blobs of code that do also solve the problem. Yes. And there are so many things you miss out on if you're not doing that. Like my Hermes agent, all the stuff I'm doing here, throughout our conversation, I have sent 5 messages to my Hermes agent, giving it context on what we talked about and telling it to do some research and plan things out for me and save them to data sources. I got a video idea out of this. I have things that I need to test on my home server on this. I have things I need to download later tonight on this. All of this all of this happened through code that I didn't write and I haven't even read, and it's useful. It's solving a real problem for me. I would be missing out if I did everything in that super well put together way. So I'm just trying to figure out what the balance between these two is. And I'm coming to the conclusion that the balance here is not some like wishy-washy middle ground of, oh, I'll do it here. Like in every project, I'll like kind of read this file and blah, blah, blah. No, it is total extremes, I think almost on the day. Like there are some days where I want to just be reading code, making it really good, like spending a lot of time going deep on one problem. There are other days where I want to be sitting there at my desk, have 6 codex sessions running on my MacBook, 7 codex sessions running on my Windows PC, 8 sessions running on the Hermes agent, and you're just going crazy between all of these. I think that's what I've found to work pretty well. But again, it's not perfect. Like it's not a perfect solution. I don't think that like the stuff I'm producing is perfect either. Like I think I could be doing much better in many ways.
So I've said this on Twitter. I feel like I need a mentor, and I would love for Mario to be my mentor, because I love that mentality.
Yeah.
I love the mindset of like refining something to a high degree, but then I'm just surrounded by myself, and myself is like the ADHD dog. Yes. You know,
I'm drawn in 1,000 directions at once, and it's so hard to have the discipline now to not do that, to not chase every shiny little object and idea all the way down the rabbit hole until you get bored of it and go to a different one, but rather have the discipline to deeply understand and work on one thing for a long time.
So I think we use this as like the closing subject, because I've been sitting recently and looking at all of the projects that I have, because I have /AI, which is on my machine, and that has all of my like AI, like research, fun, all the stuff that I do AI related.
Yep.
I have projects, which has more like serious projects, but also it's like 3 years of stuff that I already filtered from 10 years of stuff.
Yeah.
And I set like these models with /goal/loop, and I tell them to just go read every single file on the computer. Just read all of it, summarize, put it in here. So after like a week of doing that, I had a conversation with that file set, and I noticed that I am rebuilding the same primitives here and here and there.
That's an interesting one.
And I started thinking like, okay, like let's say we have a new, like in my home directory, we have a new /units/ whatever, atoms, which is these primitives that I am composing into other stuff, and I standardize them. So one standard interface, one standard functionality piece, and that's it. That's the atom, and I can reuse that. And then I think that would, like, I'm assuming, I don't know if this is logical or reasonable. So I when I really got into software, I was like into React. That was my main thing. And in React, you have the concept of containers and components. So you put the components together, and those go together in containers, and containers get data from an external source, and usually containers are loaded into pages, which are templated. So that's like the React like building block structure, and I think it works. I think it's good. That's why the language dominates, but it's a lot of work, because you would have to go through dozens of projects and then find what's actually worth keeping.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I haven't done this for any of my stuff yet, but I bet if you like ran through my developer directory and all my sessions, you would find me doing very similar things over and over again.
For sure.
Like And I think, and I've even noticed this in myself a little bit, where I'm trying to save more of these artifacts that I produce. Like even just the effect code example that we were talking about earlier, the effect code that I wrote with Fable to ensure that that file was really robust. That's that's a good, useful piece of context to give to another model to be like, hey, this is how effects should work. And like, I didn't save that outside of that project. That code is now stuck in that project, and other projects don't have it.
And it might get buried. I think that's...
Oh, it already has gotten buried.
So the data is so valuable. Now,
Yeah.
almost all data is valuable. It didn't used to be the case. Most of what we did used to be trash. And now every git commit, everything on your machine is valuable.
Yep.
And so you have to figure out a system to automatically mine it.
Yep.
Essentially every 24 hours. But going back to the idea of building these primitives. So like, let's say I want to build better products. Instead of thinking about what the next product is going to be and setting these unrealistic expectations that this one's going to be different, what if I just have these core components that I just like sit there tweaking for 30 years and and then I can just prompt and say, you
Fit
have
these
all
together
of the
this way.
pieces, build out this shape.
Yep.
And this is what good software agencies do.
Yeah.
Over their career, they build up a lot of these projects, the products, and they can extract them into these cores that
They make
rebuild.
artifacts. Yep. They now know how their agency does auth, how they do the data layer, how they do all these things. And suddenly, instead of having to do tons of R&D, you can gun out all of these systems instantly because they have them prepped.
And
that makes a ton of sense.
The harness. Have you tried Claude Design?
I have not. No.
You should.
Is it really good?
It is. So, okay. Claude Design is like it's in the website, maybe in the app.
I think that they have it in the desktop app as well.
You can give it a description of what you want, a GitHub repo link, a website link. You can upload maybe a few things.
Yeah.
And then it'll go and it'll create a component library.
Interesting.
A logo, a set of logos with different colors, like dark mode, light mode.
Yeah.
So it'll create like the UI, like not a UI kit because it's a design, like in Figma. It can create the base components, and then you can argue with it about those base components.
Gotcha.
Get to a point where you have something nice and you can download it, and now you can just tell Claude like, "Hey, make me a banner."
And then just uses what is
there.
It has the colors, the fonts, the logos, the examples. Yeah.
I bring that up because it's like the harness is where a lot of the intelligence can be extracted from the model. And like, we just don't have that many good harness. Like we have good agent harnesses, but if you think like medical harness or like a workout harness, like a media gen harness.
Untapped. Completely untapped. Yep.
Untapped.
Yeah, wildly untapped. And that'll be an interesting one over the next couple of years as those start getting figured out, because as insane as it feels to us right now here deep in Silicon Valley world, like our little bubble, this has not gotten outside of it. Like I have friends back when I was visiting Ohio to visit family, friends who are professional software engineers working at real companies doing real shit, who are still using like old models. Like, because if you even just think about like on the enterprise side, a lot of these companies are gated to just using Claude models through Bedrock, and they have a limited subset. Like most people have not touched anything like 5.5 or Fable.
Yeah.
It's very,
Most
very
people
few.
have not touched anything like Fable.
No, yeah.
Going back, man, that's the biggest. I'm really worried because I feel like I made a little digital friend and it's gone.
It'll be back.
I know.
It's just going to be like, what is the future after that? I don't know.
I know.
I'm concerned.
It's just strange because if you think about like Andre Karpathy, like again, he's in the company. I don't want to like bring up his name because there's dozens of people. What's the name of the girl from Anthropic, the philosopher? Amanda?
Askell. Yeah, Amanda Askell.
Like I really like her. I think she's great.
She's
like,
fascinating.
She's so good at like talking. I've seen her on podcasts. And like, if somebody can't get access to the thing that they're worth, like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
It sucks. I mean, I've seen people talking about this, and it's seeming more true, is that one of the best reasons to join a Frontier lab at this point, it's not money, it's not any of that stuff. It is to get unlimited access to their internal models.
To the Frontier,
yeah. Because, like, internally at all these companies, like, OpenAI is using whatever's next internally. Like, they're probably not using 5.5. They're probably using something else. And, like, being inside these labs has such an advantage. Like Peter, the creator of OpenClaw, his post about burning $1.3 million of tokens.
He's in a unique situation. I don't think most people in OpenAI have the ability to build whatever they want or do whatever they want. Like that's the thing we need to also keep like in mind.
I think if you are from what I know, talking to like my friends who are there, if you can, like, if you actually have a reason to spend $1.4 million of tokens, they'll let you do it. Like, they will not, if you are going crazy with tokens, they will not stop you. They will be interested in what they're doing. They will be curious. Like, there is no universe. I cannot imagine a universe in which you're internal at OpenAI and you burn like $5,000 of tokens. They're like, oh, stop. Nope. You got to wait. No more tokens. Like, they will give you as much as you need.
In May, I burnt $25,000. So that was the highest
nice.
month that I've had. It was because of the 5.5 stuff, you know?
Yep.
And then, you know, I just think, and I'm like, man, I could spend more. And it's
what can you do if tokens were not a constraint? What could you do? And that's what they're trying to prove out with the OpenClaw stuff is what can you do if tokens are completely free? And it's quite cool. So, but a lot of it isn't perfect yet. Like,
and it's not
is
necessary
not
either.
Oh,
like,
God,
because, you know, there's this whole thing with like the bubble. Everybody's like the bubble, you know, or in an AI bubble. Is it a bubble? Because like how have we not known that almost everything is useless?
Yeah.
Like, you know, half of the jobs in the world are just like, they don't need to be there.
So many things can get automated. And like, I think on the bubble conversation, I think it is, I have a similar opinion on like the AI bubble to like the SpaceX IPO and stuff like that, where like in the short term, is this stuff overvalued? Probably. In the long term, is it overvalued?
Hell no.
I think it's undervalued, frankly.
Yeah. And
like, I think
what is value?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you put a number on GPUs in space that can run forever and you have unlimited compute? Like, how do you put a number on that? And especially when you get to the point where you have models that can autonomously do groundbreaking biological research that are just running infinitely.
Most people don't believe it. So that's where the surprise is to me. Because like,
well, to be honest, I didn't either. Like, if you showed me from 5 months ago a clip from me today, I would have been like, what the hell happened to that guy? Like, he's completely gone. And because I just hadn't seen it at that point. And it's very hard to go from there's no way this is possible to seeing that it's possible. Everyone has the moment where it clicks for them and they suddenly understand what is possible. And I've been watching this happen to all of my smartest friends one by one. They'll have their moment where it finally clicks for them and they go down the rabbit hole and it just begins. It's really cool, but most people have not had that moment and they don't understand what is possible here. And if you've only ever used Copilot with GPT-4o in Windows, you're going to think AI is completely useless and overhyped. Versus if you've used Fable, you understand what we're dealing with here.
Well, just to wrap it up, so you have already used local models and you've done some stuff with them. Like, what would you advise people, like both in the local space and like the frontier? Because a lot of people, they don't know what's possible. What would be like a good piece of advice to give to somebody to explore what's possible?
Whatever you think is possible is probably wrong. Push up against that. Like, figure out where you think the line is, where you think, okay, the AIs can do blah, 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 but they can't do this. Find where that line is and try it. Like, there, you will not get hurt by trying it. Just see if they can go further than you think they can. And when they go past where you think they can, it will break your brain a little bit. And then you got to keep doing that. Because the problem is, I've done this probably 5 times at this point where I've had, they can do all the way up to here. And I realize they can go further. Mm-hmm. But then I find a new wall. And I'm like, okay, this is the new place where they stop. And then I don't go further than that. You have to, more than ever, be willing to reassess your worldview every 2 weeks at that minimum, probably more than that. Like, you have to blow up everything you know constantly and just try stuff. Like, that is the best advice I can give, is just try stuff. Even if you just are on like I was running actual models on my 2070 last night. Like, that is not a great frontier card or whatever. And I was getting actual local models on that thing. See what you can do with what you have. Just dick around with what your hardware can do before you try and spend way too much money on something you don't fully understand yet. Push what you have to its limit. And then once you understand where you're limited on, then you can go do more.
My favorite thing about your channel is how deep you go into the tech stuff. Like, you're actually like tinkering with things. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I really appreciate that about you. I felt like I got the ability to learn about Effect. I think that's something that I'm going to actually go and dig into more.
It's super useful. Use the Effect v4 beta. Just tell it to use the Effect v4 beta repo. And what's really cool about it, like one last thing on them, is their team is excellent and they are doing really great work to make the model experience as good as possible, because like within node modules, they put documentation for agents in node modules. So as the agent is sniffing around for how does effect.try_promise work, they get a beautiful documentation snippet that tells them exactly how they should and shouldn't use it. Very similar philosophy to like what Pi does, where it has the actual like in the system prompt, it tells it where the Pi source code is, and the Pi source code contains information for the models on how to build and use with Pi. So
building with intention, man.
yep, it makes a difference. Like this stuff pays off when you do it right. You just have to think it through, and it's not easy to do.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for being on this.
That was fun.
Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Great to see you as always.
So how do we deal with the file transfer?
I will get all that done for you.
Do we do it like physically or? Okay.